Hey guys, welcome to this week's Money and Investing Show. This week we are talking about financial scams. Yes, they're out there and most people have probably seen one in their email inbox or received an unsolicited phone call. Check out some of the checklists that we're providing for you in this podcast. Stay safe. Don't get caught on the hook by this. Plenty of great information. We'll see you in the show. Hey guys, welcome to this week's Money and Investing Show with me, your host, Andrew Baxter, and as always, my offsider and co-host, Mitchell Laurential.
Thanks for having me on the show, Mr. Baxter. And despite the quality of our content remaining relatively robust, our outfits today are all over the shop. You've got pastel, I've got short sleeve on. What's going on?
Look, I just was in touch with my softer side today, and pastels felt like it was about right.
Very nice. Well, hopefully your softer side can come into today's episode because we're actually going to be talking about the heartache of some financial scams. And it is a real issue posing society right now. There's plenty out there, particularly with the rise of technology. Financial scams are horrible. Let's go through them.
Yeah, look, the move online, particularly through the sort of pandemic period where more and more stuff is done online, has really paved the way, I think, for financial scams certainly to get further toeholds, unpleasant as they are and heartbreaking as they are, as you rightly say. And look, we hear it firsthand of them all the time. We get approached ourselves, our clients have been approached, and people, the general public, carry a level of skepticism. And who can blame them? Because being able to sort out the wheat from the chaff, the good guys from the bad guys, is something that is quite tricky to do online. So we'll go through a bit of a checklist to help people with that. But I suppose probably a good place to start is, what's a financial scam and how does it work?
All right, you're probably the best person for that. What are they, AB?
The ones that I've had a couple of clients, and I'll share a first-hand story about this shortly. But typically, it's an unsolicited approach that you've received, usually online. What I mean by unsolicited, you just get a call out of the blue from someone purporting to be an investment advisor or a broker, saying they've got this great thing to invest in and they want to send you some information. And an unsolicited call like that out of the blue, it should be a big warning light to you. Legitimate businesses don't undertake unsolicited calls to random people to say they've got a great investment. Let's face it.
And just on that, to dive a touch deeper, for example, I've seen a number of clients mention they've been contacted for IPOs or initial public offering to buy stock. The fact of the matter is, why would a large company issuing stock go to one small retail investor? It just doesn't happen, right?
Well, that's right. If you're running an IPO, an initial public offering, typically there are sponsoring brokers, usually numerous sponsoring brokers if it's a big IPO, and they then distribute the shares through their client base. That's why they're an underwriting and sponsoring broker involved with that. It's not down to the company to contact you directly. That's not how it works. So there's an example of something if you receive, again, unsolicited, something that's a red hot scam. You're not going to see your money again and you won't be getting your shares in that IPO either.
Oh, absolutely. Huge red flag. And they can even find themselves into your email. I had an email to my personal address today. Hey, we've got some money for you. Just let us know your bank account details and we'll send it over. It's the order of 250 million. I thought, great.
There's always, you go back a little while ago, and I think these things have become a little bit more sophisticated, but a couple of years ago, it used to be, someone in Nigeria is looking to deposit some monies and da-da-da-da-da. And I mean, that's pretty obvious as to what it is. And I know Nigeria doesn't get the best rap from a fraud perspective, but there's good reason for that too. But certainly that space of financial fraud and scam has got ever more sophisticated now, with websites and, quality literature and quite the compelling story. If you invest in this now, we can guarantee you X and Y. I had an email from someone the other day that forwarded on. I asked them to forward me what they'd received from this particular company, and they had their zero risk trading policy that was signed off from their finance department. So it looks all legitimate to someone that's fairly uneducated in the financial market space. Well, they sent me documents to show that there's no risk on their trading and da-da-da-da-da. So I sent them some money and that was the last I saw of it. So, it is heartbreaking when you hear those things, and everyone has to work hard for their money. And let's face it, in the investing world, there are enough ways legitimately that you can take some bark off and lose money without, some dodgy outfit really sort of taking you to the cleaners.
Totally. And it's funny that you mentioned you have to work hard for your money. And I think these scammers prey on that get rich quick philosophy or zero risk, which just simply doesn't happen in financial markets.
Yeah, look, there was one a while ago, and actually I saw the ad, and I thought this is actually quite interesting, and I actually followed it through for a period of time, and their whole pitch was, okay, we guarantee we're going to give you 4 consecutive winning trades, And when we do that, you can buy a $25,000 or $35,000 software package to do this for yourself. But we don't want any money now. Let's prove to you, first of all, that this works. And this will be quite interesting. And actually ended up being in touch with someone that worked within that business as a former employee, and they actually explained exactly what they did. So let's say you've got 10,000 leads, and we're going to say, right, we're recommending today you buy Wells Fargo Bank, and we guarantee it's going up. 5,000 of those leads, you make that long recommendation to that it's going up. And
so
the other
profit if it goes up.
Yep. And the other 5,000, you say, we believe Wells Fargo is going to fall, and that recommendation goes out to the other 5,000.
So half long, half short.
Correct. At the end of the trade, it's either been a winner for one group or a winner for the other. So you've now got a pool of 5,000 new leads. So now you divide it into 2,500 are going to get a recommendation to buy Disney, and the other 2,500 are going to get a recommendation to short Disney. You're going to have 2,500 out of that have been winners. 1,250 is the next one. And by the time you get to that sort of fourth iteration, you've got 625 people that you've shown 4 demonstrable trades that have been winners. And they go, how good's this? You've proven yourself to me. And they get the checkbook out and fire over the cash. And that's pretty much the last time you hear from that company. And that was their particular approach for attracting clients in. And you think about it, if these people actually put as much effort into being legitimate, they'd probably have a pretty good business. But that sort of Machiavellian, sneaky, how can we touch somebody up and con them kind of mindset is why they do what they do. And when you look at it like that, it's a very cynical, but it is a business model, albeit down the wrong channel.
Totally. And people lose money from it, which is the really heartache part. I guess now is probably a good time to ask, AB, this story that you've got, personal friend of yours, also a client of ours who got touched up in some instance. Could you share in some detail on that?
Yeah, and I'll leave names out, and I'm pretty sure he'll be following the podcast and knows exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, he's a client. He's someone I actually consider a good friend too. He's a genuinely good person. And got approached from an outfit out of London, and a lot of this stuff is offshore. So let's talk about one of the big red flags. If something is from offshore, and we'll go through a checklist at the end to help people to avoid this sort of stuff. Got approached from a mob out of London with offices, I think, in Singapore and Dubai. At least on their website it said so. Invest, and this is what we do. And he and I spoke about it. As I say, I consider him a good friend. And he said, I'm doing this. And I said, well, send me some details. It sounds interesting. And I had a look at it, and it's really hard to sort of pin it down, but it's like a sixth sense. It's like, yeah, it just doesn't.
They are pretty clever though, right?
There's a few things that don't seem right. It's a good address in London. It was in Mayfair. And it's unusual for financial companies to be based in Mayfair. If you're a financial business, you're normally in the square mile, the City of London, as opposed to the City of Westminster. But that's a small nuance. Having lived and worked in London, I guess I know. And there are a few other things like that. And and I said, how's it going? He said, going really well. I'm making great money. And he put some cash over. And this guy, self-made guy, very smart, very, very good trader. Makes a lot of money in his self-made, super smart operator. He's nobody's fool. And so he sent some money over, and he said, I'm going to be very careful with this. Send a little bit over and see some results. Made some money, and he asked if he could redeem and take some money back, which they sent the money back. And I guess that's one of the sort of acid tests you'd always recommend is, well, send some money, see what comes back. And if it's not coming back, there's a problem. So they sent him a bit of a distribution of some of his profits as he'd requested, no drama at all. Then there was a follow-up call saying, look, we've made you this. We could have made you a lot more if you'd have trusted us to get into this, because these were the other 2, 3, 4 trades we would have put you in, and this is how it would have performed. So he sent a little bit more money, again, made some money, and they sent a little bit back on his request. So he's tested it out pretty well. And this guy, as I say, is a smart guy.
At this point in time, though, you're probably thinking it's legit. You're getting money back. It's no dramas.
And as I said, I spoke to him. He said it's legit. I've got money back, and so on. And so he's sent more, and things have been growing quite nicely, and away you go. And then he's got to the point where he's wanted to do a more fulsome redemption, i.e.
the full whack.
Pretty much the full whack. He said, there's a slight liquidity thing. Give us a little bit of time. And then, a week, 2 weeks. All right, we'll just run down the holdings now. Okay. Look, we're getting ready to send it, and all of this is all very cordial and very polite. I guess the challenge is that the things to look for in this, or we'll get on to things to look for, actually. I'll finish the story. And then, so look, money's ready to go back. What are your banking details? All right, we're about to send it. Actually, we can't send it. Tax and compliance team have just flagged it that there's a withholding tax because it's offshore. You got to pay that needs to be paid, and when that's paid, we can redeem your money. And again, it's something you'd probably listen to and go, yeah, that kind of sounds right. So he's then sent more money over to pay his holding tax. It couldn't be redeemed out of the funds for whatever reason he was given. I don't recall now. And that's it. Holding tax paid. Great. I can get my money out. Okay. It's got to go via the trustee company in Singapore. Remember, this company had several international office headquarters. It's gone via the trustee company. And he's like, what's going on with my dough? They gave him contact numbers and everything, spoke to people. Yeah, we're in Singapore. We're the trustee company. This is pretty sophisticated fraud. And we've got your money here. We don't normally talk to retail clients, but I understand it's a big amount of money. And it was a $1 million type sum. It's going to happen. We're just dealing with, because Singapore is very heavily regulated. Again, there's a box that's ticked. Oh yeah, Singapore, regulated market, blah, blah, blah. And then odds are there's no office in Singapore. It's all being run out of Gibraltar or
some warehouse somewhere.
Cyprus, which are the typical places you see these things. And they said, look, yeah, Singapore Monetary Authority are okay with it. Obviously, there's anti-money laundering and whatnot here. And there's also a local tax to pay on financial transactions, a small amount relative to the withholding. And you're thinking, like, I've paid the withholding, the money's coming back. This is like the last hurdle to cross. Send a bit more dough. That's it. No more money. Just disappeared. No more return of emails and phone calls, and the business is gone. And as I say, this guy's pretty sophisticated. Anyone listening to this, I'd never fall for that. And I don't know, a lot of people would, because there are so many checks and balances that my client put into play on this, which are legitimate sort of challenges that you'd throw into the ring to test and measure to see if this is, pretty ridgy-ditch. And it passed all of those except for one, and that's the fact that they've got his dough and disappeared. So
not only they have his dough plus
the withholding tax plus the Singapore,
which is a real shame, because it sounds very, very sophisticated. And even I'm listening to this thinking, that kind of makes sense. That sounds about right.
With the right person on the other end of the phone portraying the story, you could imagine, quite readily that this is all square. Yeah, it makes sense. We've got to pay tax. Here's the explanation of withholding tax in the UK. So the documents to support all of these types of things. And that's how sophisticated these criminal gangs are.
It's terrible, because ultimately our friend, or your friend as such, was the one who lost out on it and lost a large sum of money, which is, it breaks our heart. We hear this all the time. Yeah. What are the things to look out for in that case, AB, as we come to the end of today's session, just to make sure that we're not getting caught up in these traps?
Look, I think the key thing, anything that's offshore, you're outside of your jurisdiction, and I'd be extremely careful of dealing with anybody or anything that's not based here in Australia when it comes to financial services. The simple reason, and if you're one of our overseas listeners and you're listening to this, make sure it's in your jurisdiction. So if you're listening in London, it needs to be covered by the UK regulator. If you're in the US, it needs to be covered by FINRA or the SEC and the US regulator. So deal in your own backyard. There's plenty of opportunity in your own backyard. You don't need to look at something that's offshore. Secondly, I think you want to make sure that who you're dealing with is legitimate from a licensing perspective. So if you're here in Australia to provide any kind of financial service, you must, there's no exception, there's no asterisk, if you do this, you don't need it. You must have an Australian financial services license. We obviously own our own, and we take that aspect of our business very, very seriously. So that's an important check and balance. Looking at the website, look at the office addresses, and these sort of companies that have, prestigious offices all over the world that no one's ever heard of in terms of the company, but their offices are, Mayfair in London, Dubai, Singapore. You go, okay, that's some pretty high profile addresses. Oftentimes they can just be a serviced office. That's something to be very minded of and to look out for. When you've got multiple levels of people you deal with, so it's never the same person. It's just going through, goes to the next person, and so on, is again, a bit of a flag. And I guess just looking at the legitimacy, look for reviews where you can actually contact a client of that company's, and okay, it could be a fake client. We know that if this is that sophisticated a scam. But all of those things as part of your due diligence, I believe can really help. How long have they been around? How long ago was a company set up? All of those things, especially if you're sending, or you're looking at investing a reasonable amount of money, and it doesn't matter whether it's $500 or 500,000. People got to work hard for their cash, and it would hurt to be picked off and victimized by a scam like that. So there are a few of the things I'd look for. what's the underlying investment strategy? Oh, we've got this particular whirligig that generates XYZ return consistently with no risk. What's the strategy? You want to dive in a bit deeper. And the people that market IPOs, like IPO investing is actually very high risk. If you don't believe me, check out WeWork, Luckin Coffee, and various others.
We did a podcast on this, I think, early days too.
We did. So, not all IPOs work. So, and so that's not a surefire way of getting in before everybody does. There are a couple of things to look at. Find out about the strategy. What are the underlying assets? How are they held? Who's the custodian? Do you have title over it? What are the drawdowns on that system? And so on. And if you've got someone putting in front of you a bottom left, top right chart, too good to be true.
I think there's a number of red flags there, and it sounds obvious when we speak of it, but when you're in the heat of the moment and there's this alluring prospect of dollars on the other side, it can be a very tempting prospect on that. AB, I think we've covered off on a lot of ground here today, and it certainly makes more people aware than less. That's our message here. Be aware.
Be aware for sure. I think giving people like those checklist points to look at are key. Go onto the ASIC website, look up an AFSL, make sure it's legitimate. You think about Melissa Caddick down in Sydney, with the no AFSL business, for example. That's another thing to sort of check out. You've got to do your homework on these sorts of things. So if you go onto the ASIC website, look up a financial services license, it'll give you the number, which will be on the website of the company you're dealing with. Make sure the office address on there matches up with the company you're dealing with, because that will also be on there, the registered address. All that sort of stuff is freely available on there, and just poke around at the seams. If they've got a financial services license, there'll be things like the financial services guide on their website. If they've just got no license and there's a big long disclaimer, but no, we're licensed to provide financial advice, run a mile. And if they're offshore, run a mile full stop, because once you send that dough overseas, your prospect of seeing it, and this is irrespective of the Australian border controls, the money ain't coming back any quicker than any of the tourists are coming back here, that's for sure. And it's a tragedy. And the worst of all, someone's looking to invest and looking to do the right thing, and their good intention has been exploited by somebody, and any potential good outcome they could have had financially in their life by taking quality action steps have really been decimated, because they won't trust anybody after that, probably rightly so, and miss out perhaps on working with the right kind of partner where they could redefine their financial future. So it's a double whammy. Not only have they lost the money, you can always make more money, but you've lost confidence and belief in yourself and other people to better help you. And that's a twin tragedy. And that's something that very sadly happens a lot. Hopefully, the content that we've talked about in here gives people a bit of a pointer. Anything in Cyprus, stay the hell away from it. Anything anywhere overseas, stay away from it, basically, would be the advice I'd give. That then keeps you in your own backyard. AFSL is a must. Double check that against the ASIC website, asic.gov.au. Have a look on there, look up financial services license, and just make sure things seem legit. If you do all those sort of steps, you're going a long way toward reducing your risk. There are always risks, but they're good steps to take in there. And in the case of my good friend that was on the wrong side of that, what I do admire about him is his psychology. He's been a very good investor for many decades now, and he's dusted himself off, and he's probably harsher on himself for falling into the trap that was set for him. And as I said to him, there's no shame on you. It would have picked off virtually anybody. It was a very, very sophisticated setup that was there. The key thing for him, it hasn't dented his enthusiasm for investing, and he's back on track with what he's done very, very successfully. And I guess the allure of some additional quick money, who doesn't want that? But for someone that's been very, very successful over the years, it's an area you don't need to look at. Stick to the knitting and keep it legitimate. Keep it on a financial services license here in Australia, and I think you'd be well placed to avoid being conned or scammed.
Well said, AB. And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Thanks very much for your time today.
Anytime, pleasure. There you have it, guys. Make sure you give us a rating and a review, and please do share this podcast with your friends and family so we can make sure we get this important information out there to a broader audience.